Welcome to today's Leadership Lunch Chat with myself and Jen Wilson. So, Jen and I were talking about what to talk about this week and just our observations from firms we've been working with and actually conferences being available again, going out and speaking, and just seeing kind of a difference in just the openness of everyone taking in the messages and basically just being I think soaking it in more than usual, maybe because we've gone through such a strange period. We also are seeing so many staff people struggle, and we want to keep those staff people and we want to keep them happy. And so for the first time really with leadership, we're seeing big changes.
Yeah. First of all, I'll tell you that, Amy, I dread my LinkedIn notifications right now, a little bit because every day I get LinkedIn notifications of more really key people, really great future leaders
Mm-hmm.
inside firms changing jobs. And it hurts my feelings for my clients and for the great firms they're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I want those young people and future leaders to be successful and happy. And so I don't begrudge them leaving, but it
Right.
makes me sad. And it isn't quitting season yet. We like to say that there are two major quitting seasons in public accounting. People quit year round, but big bleed periods, and they're Mayish and November-ish. That's the big
After.
periods. And I'm getting these notifications every day, all during the second busy season. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm nervous about this great resignation, and I'm hopeful that firm leaders are waking up to whatever the changes are that they need to make. But I've started to say to people in leadership, hey, um, for a long time we were trying to build a firm with what we thought was best, okay, or what we knew was best from our experience and from what we'd learned from our predecessors. And what I'm trying to get firm leaders to do now is to realize what they have to do is build a firm that their next gen talent want to buy.
Yeah. Well, and it takes uh, uh and I think that's the observation, a sense of vulnerability right now of being open to all of these different ways to create a culture, number one, and to create wealth for your staff people that, traditionally in accounting firms, the people that make the money are the partners that have been there the longest, not even just all the partners. So it takes a while to get to that point of creating wealth. And, you're competing with opportunities in corporate type firms and corporations, tech companies. And so, really getting creative in how you create wealth for staff people at younger ages that bind them in. Also, they are interested in how everything is going from a business perspective, holistic perspective, because they're owners, they're a part of it, is to me a really exciting trend that is starting to happen, because it will not everybody wants to become a partner. I mean, that isn't everybody's goal in life, even though many partners believe everybody wants to become a partner. But there's many people that want to be specialists, that want to get really good, keep learning, but they also want to balance it with a certain amount of work-life balance as well, and boundaries around that. So it's important that, really looking at what is happening in the industry between when we talk about the great resignation, but the solves that we're seeing from a mental health perspective, culture perspective, and stock ownership.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give a perfect example. So right now, a lot of firms are making hay with employee retention credits, with PPP forgiveness, um, with other significant consulting projects that are big revenue to the firm. And they've got, a team of people managing those things. And that team of people may or may not be partners. They may not have equity. And they're unclear of how they're sharing in that revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
They can see the bundle of money that they're tying up for the firm, but they can't quite see how they're going to share in it. And they're working their tails off.
Right.
And they're hopeful that the firm will just take care of them. And boy, do I hope the firm takes care of them. And I'm where I can and where I have the ear of leadership, I'm saying, hey, what's our plan here? Let's start thinking ahead so the partners aren't all, getting their fork and knife out and getting ready to eat that bundle of money, get themselves like getting ready to absorb that wholly without the plan to share, and
Right.
there's lots of different structures. You can have performance-based bonus structures. You can have profit sharing structures. We could, I have a client that's an ESOP, which I think is super cool. Employee-owned CPA firm, which is wonderful. And there's a few out there that I'm aware of, but not very many. But that's an interesting structure where you can, really feel like you're part of what you're doing every day,
Mm-hmm.
and that you have a long range benefit there. But we're seeing all sorts of different structures pop up to support this. But so the money side of it is one piece. The other side of it that I think is super critical is like the firm has to run in a way that I want to run it later, or I want to still work here later when someone else is running it. And by running, I mean like who we serve, what we offer, these boundaries you speak of, the hours that are expected of me, the stress level, the tone, the culture, the technology we use, for crying out loud, how efficient does it feel? How much churn is there? I've had a couple calls this week with bright future leaders that are linchpins to their firms. And the call, if I let the call go, the person would have talked a whole hour about stuff that doesn't make sense to them that's happening right now.
Right.
Like they're letting loose on me, and they're like, and then another thing, and then I have to say, okay, so I get all that. I'm so sorry that you're stressed like this and feeling this way. Let's talk about what you can do to shift some of this, and I try to get it back to them, and, what are we going to do together? But when I hang up the phone, I think, oh my gosh, hanging by a thread,
Yeah.
just hanging by a thread. And it's because the firm isn't making sense to them. They don't agree with the policies and the programs and the way it's going, and they don't see light at the end of the tunnel. And part of that is because the partners are down in a ditch, digging as hard as they can to get out from under these deadlines in our perpetual year-round cycle called we're not leveraged, we don't have enough capacity, and we're on that hamster wheel called busy season, and I can't fix any of this stuff. And we come off busy season and we have this small rest period. I sometimes when I'm teaching, I do like almost stand up where I'm like, busy season on the wheel. Then I get off and I'm like, holidays, bam, busy season, spring, I get off. 5 weeks of productivity and proactivity, back on the wheel, and that structure doesn't work. It doesn't work to build a firm that young people want to run after you're ready to go. And not everybody outside of your firm is going to be a real buyer for it. So I think some leaders are like, well, we can't solve these problems probably. We're going to keep this up. We're going to acquire more firms so we can increase the speed of the wheel that we're running on, bring in more of their problems and all of their clients they can't serve. And we'll try to serve them. And then we'll sell this thing. Someone else will solve it. And I've been telling firm leaders, hey, man, if everybody's got a for sale sign in your neighborhood in their front yard, your house isn't worth much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the public accounting paradigm right now. Every partner wants to put his for sale sign or her for sale sign in the front yard as the solution. And that's not going to get you the valuation you want. So we have to make the changes. We have to do it. And I'm going to come back to something we talked about last time, and you might not want to pick up on this thread, Amy, but I think the number one thing we have to do, I'm not kidding, I keep coming back to this, like if you say, solve it, Jennifer, right now, tell us what to do. fire a bunch of clients November 1st and make some space for some people to implement some real change.
Yeah, and to do that and all the things that you're talking about and going back to the staff people venting, it really is important to get back to vulnerability and transparency and be open to suggestions right now. And so to your point, I know there's a bunch of partners in a room, discussing things, trying to solve, but you can't do it in a silo. And too often, what I see is they don't really want to know what the staff think, or there's people complaining and venting and wasting time and then leaving because things don't make sense to them. If you can't create transparency on the meetings that you're having and find ways for town halls and one-on-ones with people, you know, 2 levels below you, to make sure that you understand how other leaders are working for their staff, and if their leaders are actually taking what they're setting for the firm and putting it through the culture, you'll find out very quickly that they're probably not. Everyone's got an eat what you kill mentality. And the nice thing is, when you start thinking about restructuring and taking in that feedback, you can get back to setting your value system, aligning everything that you do along that value system. And a feeder out of that are the clients you keep. So it's important at high level to know like what your values are, and do your clients align with your values and your mission. And then outside of that, okay, the ones that don't fit, really taking a hard look and having the open discussion with your staff of the ones that you're choosing to keep and you're choosing not to. I know in my practice, one time I had to get rid of like my highest paying client because they were not aligned with the values that I was setting in my practice. I talked to them a number of times, tried to get it back in alignment, but it is way harder to replace staff than it is a client. And so because of that, and being transparent with the staff of what I was doing with the client to try to solve for them and so forth. And then when I actually eliminated that client, the staff was so much more loyal to the business because of that, because I put them first. And you will always win when you put them first, because they're going to work that much harder and care that much more, because you're showing that you personally care about their life as well.
Yes. So I went to a webinar. I had an interesting cancellation blow a hole in my day Wednesday or Thursday. And I went to a 1-hour webinar put on by CPA.com as part of their digital CPA series. Tom Peters, the management guru from growing up, did an hour. And in the first, 4 minutes or something of his talk, he said, I'm glad to see and hear and hope that leaders put people first. You just said, I put my people first. And it made me think of this. And he said, I'm glad to see people putting people first. What the hell else is there? That's right. And of course, I totally related to his cussing, a little bit, but right. Because I try not to ever do that. I don't do it usually into the mic, but I, can do that too. So I just loved him, and I loved it. The question, what the heck else is there? What is there besides people first? And, I got to thinking, Amy, as I was reflecting on it, because that was really his entire talk, is like culture, people, leadership, protecting the staff, the team, the commitment. That's all there is. Everything else will take care of itself if you do that. And I got to thinking, it's a little bit like if you have kids, if any of us listening have kids, if your kids came home and they were like, this kid is bullying me every day. This,
Mhm.
out there, they're terrible to me.
Right.
They tell me to meet them on the playground at a certain time and they're not ready when I get there and they don't even show up and blah, blah, blah. You'd be like, hey, kid, here's what we're going to do to get out of that relationship, or I'm going to go handle the bully, right? That's
Yeah.
what, sooner or later, that's what the parent does. Well, we have clients bullying our people. We have
Right.
clients showing up like not, good clients. They're not, and not
Mhm.
just mean clients or slow pay or no pay, but also clients that don't make sense for us.
Right.
They don't make sense to our team.
Right.
And the team
Or
is,
we're not staying within scope of the engagement, which
oh
is
yeah.
also a hard thing for
Well, or, and okay, let's stay in. I don't care if you want to tell me to go out of scope as long as you're not going to ding me later for realization being
Well,
off or
right.
something,
No,
right? I
but
mean,
to
like,
get paid for that
yeah,
and your workload represent. Yeah.
yeah. If our KPIs make
Mhm.
your decisions to manage it
Yeah.
poorly hurt me, that's nuts. But anyway, your people are like the next circle of family. And
Yeah.
when there are outside influences hurting that circle, we have to address it, right? So,
Mhm.
I mean, that's a no brainer, but also capacity, the volume. The volume's just too great. That's where we are right now for the people. Now, Travis is
Yeah.
out here and he says, hey, uh, I can't find people. Are CPAs looking for jobs? No, I tell people if you have a proactive CPA who applies for a job, unless they're relocating to your town, they are moving a problem. Okay, so usually they are not awesome hire. Because the best people that you're gonna hire, you're gonna have to pluck from wherever they are right now. You will have to in reach. Period. That's the only way that people are moving.
Well, and set up the right technology so you can recruit anywhere in the country.
100%.
Um, because the fact is, this goes back to exactly what we started with is how do people want to work now? Not the way that we worked before. And so we've got to make sure we have the right technology for remote technology that you may never meet this employee in person ever. It's very possible, but there's a lot of good people out there, especially part-time, if you're willing to figure out part-time schedules. If you've got the right technology and systems in place so that they still feel that they're a part of the culture, they still feel they're a part of the business. But there are so many, to Travis's point, CPAs running scared because of what they've been through the last couple years and feeling like their voices aren't being heard and it's very possible their voices are being heard, but there's no transparency back to let them know their voices are being heard and why or why not there are changes or not changes. So it's important to step back and instead of looking on the outside of like, well, there's just no CPAs looking, how else do I change my business model so that I can recruit the best talent from anywhere that they are, um, and get them in my practice? And it may not look like the way it looked a couple years ago.
Well, and that we call that borderless reach. And there are a lot of people trapped in firms that aren't going to change and that are behind your own, way behind your own. And so if you can present options to them that, don't require they move to where you live, you will find people ready to move. There are lots of people gearing up for quitting season.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is the time. This is the window's about to open here. And so this is the time to do it. And then it'll close again, not be as easy to recruit over the holidays and into January. But the biggest thing is, we started kind of with this, and I want to make sure that we drive it home hard is you can build a firm that your people want to run without you when it's time. But the only way to do that is to get them involved in running it now and asking them what they want to change, and then putting your palms up and subordinating to their wishes to the best of your ability to let them try things, innovate, and change this thing so that it works for them, and be there to coach them on the mistakes they're going to make along the way.
But
That's what you have
not,
to do.
but correct and make sure that as ideas come through, the answer is we've already done that. We've tried it before. Because someone might have a different way of approaching something. And when you say keep your palms up, that's what it is, right? Is being the support, nurturing the process of allowing people to try new things, and then having guardrails around it as you go to make sure that it works. And we've had some sessions on here about that have been really helpful. But we are at time. So hopefully this was helpful to those of you that tuned in with us. And we are very grateful for those of you that follow us each week during these leadership lunch chats. It's helpful for us as well. And if you have any ideas that you would like us to talk about in the future, please let us know. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.